the land audit. Land audit is also important in that it will determine the level of productivity and production on farms. We also do the resolution of disputes and complaints. You know, a lot of time is being wasted on farms. People arguing on boundaries, ownership, inheritance, at the expense of production and ensuring food security. So the Commission is there to resolve disputes. We received more than 7,000 disputes since the inception in 2016, and to date we have resolved more than 2,000 disputes. We also do the 99 year lease inspections to recommend to the minister those that are supposed to get the tenure document. Hence, they be in a position to ensure the land rights and have collateral such that they will get funding for production to have enough food and raw materials for the industry produced. As far as the Commission is concerned, we always struggle to achieve our mandate because of budget support. The required budget that we always expect to get is not what we actually receive. Like in 2023, our ideal budget is 14 billion. But what did we get? We managed to get 8 billion. That's the expenditure target, which means there is a variance of 5 billion. As we actually interact with farmers,
6 billion.
we receive a lot of recommendations and challenges that the farmers are actually facing. And as we recommend to government, we try by all means to outline these. Like, I'm not going to say a lot on them, as the chairperson highlighted some of them that are actually affecting production and productivity on farms. Mr. Speaker said, allow me to say the Zimbabwe Land Commission, because of its intervention, we have now the land bank, which we expect to support the farmers such that they can really do production on farms. We also made recommendations on allocations and alienation in order to strengthen the land administration system, hence reduce the occurrence of disputes and complaints. We are also seized with the task of looking at the tenure systems in Zimbabwe, where we would want to ensure a recommendation is given to government for the farmers to enjoy the 8 basket of rice. And this will also enable them to be in real production, and farming will be taken as a business. I thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mawere, for that presentation.
Well, they are attending to
Mr. Speaker, Madam President,
yes.
we now request the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Water, Climate and Rural Resettlement, represented here by the Deputy Minister, Mr. Honorable Totos, to give responses to the presentation.
Before I give the response, just who are the chief accounting officers. The only ministers I see, Honorable, wait for the mic. Mr. Speaker said, I was patient enough to give some time to the cabinet ministers to be here, the deputy ministers to be here. I even expected the chief accounting officers, who are the permanent secretaries, to be here. I see Honorable Mtswangwa, there is a cabinet minister, and the good thing when she's absent, she says it, the esteemed and competent Honorable Mona, who is always there, Mash East, Honorable Minister of State. I don't see the Honorable Minister of State for Mash West, Honorable Mliswa Chikoka. She was here yesterday. I don't see her. So, the permanent secretaries, as I sit here, Mr. Speaker, where are they? I see the good trio of the Minister of Finance and Economic Development, who is there. The deputy, the able, he is there. His permanent secretary is here. So where are the other deputy ministers and permanent secretaries? Because the permanent secretaries are the chief accounting officers. No wonder why the Minister of Finance always says, we give them money, but they don't ask for the money. Now you see, we blame Honorable Mtuli that is not giving them money. But how can they ask for money when they don't know how much they've been given, how much has been approved? So really, where is the chief accounting officer? The permanent secretary?
The minister.
Mr. Speaker said, the Garabat Gata, Basarenyula, Marika, Kukumberumi. Okay, just to, but to be honest, the chief accounting officers, where are they? I mean, where are permanent secretaries?
And your sister.
Where is she? Honestly, Mr. Speaker, Tibet put chief accounting officers are equipped. You can see the speaker is with his chief accounting officer, the clerk. That's how it should be like. You sit next to each other so that if the minister is out of line, the permanent secretary advises the minister. That's the role, to be honest with you. But where are they?
Honorable Mliswa, thank you. Maybe let's have the input of the Honorable Speaker.
I have no input. I have done what needs to be done, right? And the powers that be will have to deal with the matter. And indeed, Honorable Mliswa is correct. Well, for the Minister of Agriculture of Lands is out of the country. Minister of Small to Medium Enterprises out of the country. Those I have their apologies. And the Deputy Minister of Health is outside the country and so on. But the accounting officers, they are the ones who look after the budget. They are the ones who advise ministers. They are the ones who indicate how prudentially the budgetary allocations are to be put in place. So it's up to the Chief Secretary to deal with them accordingly. As far as I'm concerned, their absence was indicated yesterday, as I explained. I have no big whip to whip them to be here. We will proceed accordingly.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the intervention. We now ask the Minister to do his presentation.
Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Advocate J.F.N. Benda, President of the Senate, Honorable M.M. Chinomona, ministers and deputy ministers here present, and chairpersons of parliamentary portfolio committees, colleague members of parliament and senators here present, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. I've been asked to respond in 15 minutes, and I will try my best. As the portfolio chairman highlighted, Zimbabwe is an agrarian economy, and most of the sectors are directly and indirectly linked to the agricultural sector. Based on these linkages, the sector should be performing exceptionally well to breathe economic life in the rest of the sectors in the overall economy. The sector provides employment and direct incomes for about 70% of the population, supplies 65% of raw materials required by local industry, and contributes 40% of total export earnings. There's no doubt then that if we don't get agriculture right, we can never grow our economy. Agriculture is also a key in pursuit of the growth of the rural economy, as the sector is up to 4 times more powerful in reducing poverty than any other sector. In fact, agriculture is the Vision 2030 accelerator. Getting agriculture right presents great opportunities for local, rural economic development. The Ministry wishes to acknowledge the great support by the esteemed Parliamentary Committee on Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development, as well as Treasury in the 2022 budget year. The successes experienced in the 2021-2022 summer season bears the imprint of the support and contributions by these 2 critical stakeholders, among others. The Ministry is conscious of the need to contribute and deliver on national priorities, namely economic growth, food and nutrition security, infrastructure and utilities, moving up the value chain and transformation, climate resilience, and natural resource management. In terms of its mandate, the Ministry is responsible for ensuring food and nutrition security in the country. This is achieved through facilitation of a sustainable and viable agricultural sector by promoting equitable distribution of land, provision of security of tenure, and creating enabling environment for food production and provision of raw materials for the manufacturing sector. The Ministry carries out its mandate by providing administrative, technical, advisory, research, as well as regulatory services to the agricultural sector. Guided by the aspirations underlying Africa Agenda 2063, Maputo Declaration of 2003 on the Africa-led Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program, the Malabo Declaration of 2014 on Accelerated Agricultural Growth and Transformation for Shared Prosperity and Improved Livelihoods, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, Transitional Stabilization Plan, and the 5-year NDS and Vision 2030, the Ministry resolved to transform the sector by rolling out initiatives that influence performance of various agricultural subsectors. Pursuant and consistent with His Excellency President Edi Mnangagwa's clarion call to have all hands on the deck to pursuit of the ultimate Vision 2030, Ministry came up with and is rolling out programs bound and guided by the following blueprints: the Agriculture and Food Systems Transformation Strategy, the Agriculture Recovery Plan, Horticulture Recovery and Growth Plan, the Livestock Recovery and Growth Plan, Accelerated Irrigation Rehabilitation and Development Plan, Farm Mechanization Facilities, and Integrated Agricultural Information Management Systems. The Ministry is grateful and greatly appreciates the oversight role by the Portfolio Committee. The presentation by the Chairperson, Honorable J.M. Wachigejena, is noted, and I'm happy he touched on the fundamentals, especially the critical success factors that will enable our Ministry to occupy its prominent position to influence and position the country as we journey towards Vision 2030 agriculture. Allow me to react to issues raised during the pre-budget consultation sessions. The Ministry's current efforts and its future plans in the year 2023 are as follows. Under water, resource development and utilization, infrastructure development is a key enabler in achieving Vision 2030. In the water sector, increase in national water storage through dam construction is of paramount importance. Government since independence has embarked on dam construction, and to date it is estimated the country boasts and hosts approximately 10,000 small, medium, as well as large dams. What's important to note is 25% of the potential has been developed, which implies the nation still has huge potential for dam construction. Besides construction of new dams, government is geared on maintaining the existing infrastructure. Under infrastructure development, government currently is constructing 10 dams and 2 conveyance systems. Government no longer considers the dam as the full project, but is now embarked on implementing an integrated project which include the dam, water supply systems, irrigation development, hydropower generation, and fisheries, including other ecotourism initiatives. The aim is to optimally utilize the stored water for the benefit of our nation. The target by government is at least to complete two dam projects per each calendar year. In 2022, the target was to complete Chivu Dam and Gwai Shangani Dam projects. Due to the tight fiscal space, as of to date, government has managed to accelerate the construction of Chivu Dam, the water treatment plant, the conveyance system, and irrigation development, and overall project completion is at 98.2%. The target is to commission the project before year end. Other dams are Maroanyati at 97% and Mchekeranwa at 99%. Although Gwai Shangani Dam could not be completed in 2022, mainly due to funding, great strides have been made with the project now at 69%, which reflects great progress made during the period under review. Besides these two dam projects, some progress has been realized in other dams, but again, due to funding constraints, the progress has certainly been slow. There's Tuli Manyangi Dam, Semwa Dam, Kuji Dam, Bindura Dam, Lande Dam with the tunnel, and Bada Dam. During 2023, government will continue with the key ongoing projects with a target to complete Gwai Shangani Dam, Tuli Manyangi Dam, Harare East Augmentation Project, and complete 100 kilometers of the Gwai Shangani Bulawai pipeline. Furthermore, government will commence construction of the Defe Dam project. Major challenges are highlighted are mainly related to funding. Moving on to climate proofing, we within the ministry we consider irrigation development as part and parcel of climate proofing our agriculture. So speeding up irrigation rehabilitation and development programs is the panacea to climate-proofed agricultural sector, which is so vulnerable to climate change effects and variabilities. With irrigation development, it's two-pronged. There's the rehabilitation phase, and then there's which is a quick fix, and then there's the developmental, which is a full kit. And these are under the ministry, which is implementing the Accelerated National Irrigation and Rehabilitation Development Program, which aims to increase our current functional irrigation from 175,000 hectares to 350,000 hectares by the year 2025. Some of the programs are SIRP, which is a smallholder irrigation revitalization program, turnkey irrigation programs, the NEAPS program, CBZ, as well as Petstock, to name but a few. Under irrigation development, again, we have formed an irrigation development alliance facilities, which is our partnership between government and private sector, to the tune of $572 million United States dollars. Moving on to boreholes, the drilling and rehabilitation of boreholes is of fundamental importance. Under the Presidential Rural Development Program, we are targeting one borehole per village, which will give us 35,000 boreholes. It's not only a borehole, it's a borehole, solar pump, nutrition, garden, fisheries, orchid, as well as free-range chickens. We want to ensure that households are water as well as food secure and climate-proofed. We have rehabilitated to date 7,745 boreholes this year, drilled 772 boreholes, and developed 60 solar-powered pipe water schemes. To date, we've also received 10 of 40 rigs, and we implore the Ministry of Finance to continue their support so that we can get to our targeted 40 rigs. Under the Mechanization Alliance, which is an alliance between our ministry and the private sector, we have 11 facilities currently being negotiated with the value of over $500 million United States dollars for the supply of in excess of 9,000 tractors, hundreds of combines, and several thousand implements. Under the smallholder mechanization, we want to mechanize our farmers under the PIP program, the Mvudza program, with two-wheeled tractors as well as four-wheeled tractors and implements. And the local manufacturing initiative of implements, we are reverse engineering through our Institute of Planter, boom sprays, multi-crop threshers, as well as two-wheeled tractors. With our partnership with ADMA, which is the Agricultural Dealers and Manufacturing Association, they've also lobbied us to assist them in the removal of duties of certain components and steel required in order for us to produce as much implements as we can locally. With regards to tillage services, which was part of the consultation process, this came up. We have AFC, which is providing tillage and harvesting. Currently, there are 47 combine harvesters and 142 tractors. I personally visited Murewa district fairly recently, and I'm very happy to tell you that our farmers collectively did so well that we actually were able to deploy a combine specific for the area. Under Quadco, there's also tillage services, and we're targeting 60,000 hectares. And a point of note is that we are finding that mechanical tillage is yielding better benefits than if done by hand. Under veterinary issues, the ministry is in a drive to contain and eradicate scourge of animal diseases, especially the January disease that is claimed in excess of 500,000 cattle in a period of 4 years. The ministry introduced intensive dipping as well as a blitz tick grease program under the presidential livestock scheme. January disease-related deaths decreased by 47% in 2021 after the religious implementation of the above stated interventions. We distributed well over 1 million kgs of tick grease to over 1 million households, and we're seeing great benefits from that as the mortality rates are decreasing and have decreased substantially over the 2021-2022 period. The launch of the Livestock Recovery and Growth Plan in 2021 facilitated resuscitation of over 400 dip tanks, but our target remains at 4,000. Currently, we are on a dipping regime of a 554 in hotspots areas, so to speak. We are also trying to reduce dipping chemical costs by getting them produced locally. Under the Livestock and Growth Plan, we are trying to increase genetics through the presidential poultry, which is nutrition, addition of protein into our diets, upliftment of livelihoods of each and every person, leaving no one behind, and of course climate proofing through resilience building. And then we also have the presidential goat scheme. We are also doing artificial insemination and trying to teach our farmers on good animal husbandry. As the chairman mentioned, there is quite high turnover, especially of our vet doctors, and this is specifically related to the condition of service. Under our agricultural financing marketing, we have the Mvudza Twasa initiative. The climate-proof presidential input support program targeted to climate-proof the smallholder food production subsector. Countrywide adoption of conservation agricultural principles and tenets is being witnessed in minimum soil disturbance to maintain the soil structure, mulching, religious adoption of crop rotations. The program aims to inculcate a new culture of producing more for less and more on less, as the chairman eloquently put it, and seeks to transition smallholder farmers from subsistence farming to commercial smallholder farming, and hence it is a Vision 2030 accelerator program as it seeks to upscale value creation and incomes at household level, targeting over 3 million households in the 2022-2023 summer season. What is important, and I would like each and every one of us as members of parliament to know, is that we have changed the design of Mvudza this year, where we are distributing inputs in line with agroecological regions. So the regions that have better soils will receive crops that are more conducive, seed that's more conducive to those conditions. So if our soils are in a poor condition and the rain patterns are lower, then those are more prone towards traditional grains, and that's what we will support this coming year. In terms of the second scheme, we have the National Enhanced Agricultural Productivity Scheme, which is the former command, or we call it NIAPS, which is one of the cross-cutting imperatives in the NDS-1. We've seen great success in this, and for the sake of time, I'll move on. Also under this initiative, we have the Food Crops Contractors Association, which is a private sector-led initiative, which has really taken the bull by its horns and have really taken the country by storm. With this current wheat crop, we can see the private sector finally taking their pole position and being in charge of agricultural financing. Also under this, we have the joint venture. To date, the ministry has approved close to 2,000 joint ventures, which translates to over 150,000 hectares since 2022. To go to specific responses, we totally agree with the chairman with regards to the timeless payments of agricultural produce. This is critical for any business, and certainly farmers are not spared with these delays. What we've been trying to lobby for in the ministry is that GMD be given a revolving fund, because given the process, it's quite lengthy and money has to be remitted back to Treasury and sent back again, and this is causing a lot of delays. But what we need is we need the private sector also to come on board so that GMD only buys what it requires in terms of the SGR, and then allowing the private sector to take what they need for their own consumption. Under grain storage, the issue that was raised by the chairman, GMB has 12 silos with capacity of 760,000 metric tons and a bag capacity of just over 2 million metric tons. For your information, 80% of our wheat is kept in these silos. Currently, all mechanical, electrical, and civil works were done. All equipment is calibrated. I'm very happy to tell you that we have lab equipment that can test the quality of wheat. We also have a minimum of 2 moisture meters per depot. We also have 11 warehouses certified under the warehouse receipt system, which will guarantee same quantity and quality. This is very exciting for the private sector also to get involved in. Given the agricultural revolution, we'd like more silos and have seen keen interest from 2 major players who have already approached the Grain Marketing Board. On the comment regarding silo foods, what is important to note, honourable members, is that that silo foods is quite critical in the balancing of value addition within our country. And what we need to ensure is that we, instead of moving away from silo foods, I prefer the opposite. I think silo foods needs a lot more support so that we can ensure that silo foods is a force to reckon with. And when other wholesalers or retailers increase their prices, silo foods should be able to maintain their costings and standards as well as the pricing, so that that can also affect positively the economy. With regards to the CBZ, the chairman mentioned with regards to government having less and less involvement, and we totally agree as ministry. We've gradually decreased the percentage of government guarantee, and we are seeing positive benefits. But what we would like is us as leaders to get more and more involved with ensuring that our farmers deliver the inputs. It might not only be CBZ, it can be also under the FCCA. Let's respect the people that are financing us, and let's encourage our farmers to deliver to those that finance us in order for this to be a sustainable program. Without deliveries, surely it will fail. There was mention of Zimtrade as well as AMA being more involved. I'm happy to tell you that AMA are building a database targeting at least 1.2 million farmers. And I can tell you almost immediately that a huge chunk of farmers around this country have benefited tremendously from a Zimbabwe dollar facility that we negotiated for AMA. And what's required is the organization of this, and this is what we have, and that's why the facility has gone on very well. We're also liking and wanting to team these farmers up with banks, but again, the organization is what's required. As you know, that AMA is mandated for the overall regulation of the production, marketing and the processing of agricultural products, and so they've been working quite well with Zimtrade. Moving on to the tobacco issue, we totally agree. We actually, within the ministry, have the tobacco value chain transformation strategy, which is 3-pronged. Sorry, that's what happens when we are politicians, we talk too much. There's 3 prongs on tobacco value chain. There's a sustainable intensification, which is 300 million kgs of tobacco that we're targeting, and we want to increase the contribution from $1 billion United States dollars to $5 billion United States dollars to 2025. The second pillar under that is the promotion of local funding, which is quite critical. I think the chairman eloquently raised it well. We require much of the funding to come locally because a lot of the money is going out, but unfortunately the revolving fund that was negotiated for $60 million US dollars and approved by cabinet still was not dispersed, and we're keen to have that. And then obviously value chain, which is the value addition and beneficiation locally. Extension staff and support for farmer training. Mobility is increased, which meant climate smart adaptation technologies are being taught to our people, indigenous poultry production, leadership skills, harvesting, farming as a business concepts. Farmer field schools have started. We're targeting 35,000 so that every village has one. And soil and water conservation techniques and technologies, mulching, apiculture. Moving on to GMO crops. Currently we are doing trials, I'm happy to tell you, in cotton, but what is very important for us to know as a nation that there's no known or unknown benefits or challenges with GMO, and what we are trying to say is that give the scientists some time. We're doing the trials, we want to see what it's going to do, but we have to understand that GMO does affect the health, and we want to look at that. And also what is quite important is that GMO crops do not have a higher yielding crop. They're not designed for a higher yielding crop. It's actually modified for better better protection against pests and diseases, which is also similar to our hybrids. So the immediate focus should be on good agronomic practices to increase yields first while we do the trials in GMO, but it is definitely being considered. And then the mobilization of revenue internally, the comment that the chairman made, definitely noted it's a noble and appreciated, but I must raise with concern that Treasury issued a circular directing all line ministries to transfer all revenue collected through funds to the Consolidated Revenue Fund effective January of 2021, and the budget, all expenditure used to be funded by these funds under the appropriation accounts. Therefore, the direct and intended use will always differ. And I'll give you an example. A few years ago, the dipping issue that we had was a result of this. In conclusion, Honourable Speaker, Honourable Members of Parliament, colleagues, the presentation by the chairperson is an eye-opener. If we get agriculture right, surely we are in a great state to make everything right. The sector is so pivotal that we cannot wish away its concerns. The success of the looming summer season hinges on the success factors as presented by the chairperson. It is incumbent upon us to deploy sufficient resources that will be catalytic to the transformation of the sector and usher the much-needed rural development. The expenditure ceiling of 287.4 billion compared to the ministry bid of 1.2 trillion is far too low and still falls below the 10% minimum level committed by African governments in 2003 under the Maputo Declaration and reaffirmed in the 2014 through Malabo Declaration in the CADA. It is on the basis of this resource envelope the ministry and its agencies or parastatals are expected to deliver on production productivity as well as wash coordination issues among irrigation and mechanization development. I humbly request that a review upwards of our budget be considered. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Minister, for this mouthful presentation. And you have actually exceeded our budgeted time. But thank you so much for this presentation. Mr. Speaker, and Madam President, we now get a presentation from Honourable Chidoma Iwa on the outcomes from the consultations with stakeholders by the Portfolio Committee on Women Affairs, Community, Small and Medium Enterprises Development on priorities of the ministry.
Thank you, Honorable Nyashanu, our chairperson. Let me acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Speaker of Parliament, Honorable Advocate Mudenda, Madam President of the Senate, Honorable Chinomona. Let me say all protocol observed. I'm going to give a report of the Portfolio Committee on Women Affairs, Community and SMEs on the 2023 budget consultations from the stakeholders on key priority issues for the Ministry of Women Affairs, Community and SMEs. Mr. Speaker, let me say stakeholders, women are still worried about issues of gender equality, issues of women empowerment. And let me also highlight that this ministry is looking at issues of perceptions, changing people's perceptions, values, behaviors, etc. The stakeholders also, as we were talking informally, they actually said to me, Honorable Maniwa, we are at times we get surprised to see that, for example, Zimbabwe and Africa as a whole has a lot of talent. They are very intelligent people. If you look at the best soccer players, they are from Africa. The best golf player is of the African origin, and they can even go to be presidents of the developed countries. And we have engineers and doctors, very intelligent people who are going to develop already developed countries. But when we come to simple issues of gender equality, simple issues of women empowerment, we seem to be lagging behind. So they were saying, let's use that intellect, let's use that knowledge to make sure that we address issues of gender equality. Mr. Speaker said, let me also say, I want to thank the organizers for having this budget in October. 1 to 31 October is Breast Awareness Month. And I'm glad a lot is going to be channeled towards breast awareness, breast interventions to curb breast cancer. So, and I'm glad Women's Bank has prepared some ribbons, pink ribbons for all of us, so that as we deal with issues of our budget, we are reminded of issues of breast cancer. As I'm going to make my presentation, I will also be reminding ourselves of the policy, given policy overview of the policies that we have at international, continental, regional, and local level that address gender equality. These have been said by all the presenters, but Mr. Speaker said, if we look at Agenda 2063, it is the continent strategic framework with aspiration 1 looking at a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. In Africa, aspiration 6 in Africa whose development is people-driven, relying on the potential offered by African people, especially women, youth, and caring for the children. The same with Vision 2030, Mr. Speaker said, the adoption of the Agenda 2030 for sustainable development with a standalone goal on gender equality and women's empowerment, and the mainstreaming of gender-related targets throughout the framework gives hope for renewed energy and efforts towards eradicating poverty and achieving gender equality. The same with sustainable development goals, Mr. Speaker said, as it is enshrined in 2030 agenda, is the principle that every person should reap the benefits of prosperity and enjoy minimum standards of well-being. I will not go into the details of our local pieces of legislation, Mr. Speaker said, our very own constitution with its national objectives. There's a lot that has been done in terms of trying to address issues of gender equality and equity. Mr. Speaker said, if you are to look at the ministry's key achievements in 2022, the Zimbabwe, for example, the Zimbabwe Microfinance Bank disbursed almost 7,164 loans valued at about 250 million, and 11,000 jobs were created. But Mr. Speaker said, these are key achievements, but let's look at the population that has been targeted. As we look at our current population of 15.3 million and what has been disbursed to the current population, to the population that benefited against our country population. There are a lot of achievements that have been highlighted by the ministry. 3,662 women exposed to markets through local, regional, and international affairs. Still, Mr. Speaker said, we want to look at the population, women's population, the current population of women against what we are calling key achievements. Facilitated 3,951 MSCs in participating in local and regional international fairs. The same thing, Mr. Speaker said, 3,000 SMEs against what population is. We talk of our economy being driven by the informal sector. Mr. Speaker said, if you look at the ministry's priorities as usual, women empowerment, gender mainstreaming, cooperative development, community development, and small and medium enterprises. And what women are crying for, as we were carrying out these consultations, Mr. Speaker said, women reiterated that there is need for funding projects which ranges from individual businesses to groups and cooperatives. The projects include and not limited to community gardens, home bakeries, chicken and other farming projects, Mr. Speaker said. Women are saying, why are we getting these small projects, the chicken projects, the bakeries and other small projects? They are looking for, they also want to get into vast projects that require a lot of funding. Women are also looking at enough funds for the recapitalization of the Zimbabwe Women Microfinance Bank in order for women to access, to start up and boost their businesses. Not only capitalization, but they are also looking at tailor-made programs for the rural population. A lot of funding should go towards those women in the rural areas, because stakeholders are saying of the population, women's population, Zimbabwe population of women, we are more than 52% of our population. And if we talk of that 52%, Mr. Speaker said, more than 60% of that 52% women are in the rural areas. And they are not really benefiting from the Women's Bank, because the elite, where the Women's Bank is in the capital and in the cities, where the elite are, they rush to grab those loans before the poor woman in Mahenye or in the rural, in the very remote areas can hear about those available funds. So women are crying that let's have tailor-made projects, for example, that will address issues of agriculture coming from the Women's Bank. Key stakeholders also highlighted that the budget allocation to the bank should also encompass the United States dollar component to counter inflationary environment for both recovery loans by the bank and also during the disbursements to the loan applicants. Mr. Speaker said, women are also crying about issue, I think it has been said in detail by the reports from Honorable Paramba, the recognition of unpaid care work and domestic create a lot of investment. They are crying for a lot of investment being done in the social sector, like it has been highlighted yesterday. The argument is that around the world, Mr. Speaker said, 42% of women can't secure jobs because they are responsible for caregiving. Women and girls undertake more than 70% of unpaid care work in the world. And in 80% of households, women and girls perform the majority of household chores. And they are saying this can be reduced by everyone meeting the community's care needs. For example, setting child care centers, coming up with policies and programs really addressing that address care work. Mr. Speaker said, a good example that came out of the consultations is the issue of from the Ministry of Education, for example, issues to do with the current curriculum. Women are crying that we are doing most of the work that is demanded from the schools at primary level, the colors issue. Women are saying, I heard another woman saying, at times I have no capacity to teach my child what is required from the curriculum. Given our background as women, we are not educated, but because of their reproductive role, they are required to do some of the work that they have no capacity to do. So they are crying along those lines, Mr. Speaker said. The 2023 budget for the Ministry of Women Affairs should cater for the promotion and establishment of value addition projects for women. The committee observed that the establishment of value addition projects, for example, the one that has been established in Mutoko, the Mutoko Fruit and Vegetable Hub, the Guruwe Women Goat Milling Plant, that will hence further injection of revenue to the treasury. Mr. Speaker said, if you are to look at women in the rural areas, they are always sitting the whole day selling tomatoes along the roads. for example, if I am to talk about areas where they grow fruits, most of the fruits go to waste because of lack of having markets, and most of the people affected by these women. So stakeholders are crying that let's have value addition factories in those areas. For example, I was talking to the ministry, they want to establish it. I'm sure for the past 10 years they've been struggling to establish the Wonde Valley fruit processing plant, where most of the fruits are taken to Mbarimsika and they go to waste because of they rot as women try to sell some of those of their produce. Mr. Speaker, we also the ministry is also responsible for gender mainstreaming, and I'm not going to say much, Mr. Speaker. This is a ministry that should be capacitated in terms of coordinating all gender issues, Mr. Speaker. We are glad, stakeholders are glad that Public Service Commission is established the director post in all ministries. But the Ministry of Women Affairs should have capacity to coordinate all gender programs in the ministry. This is a cross-cutting ministry, Mr. Speaker. You can't talk of agriculture without the Ministry of Women Affairs having some work there. The Ministry of Health, we depart all ministries. So the ministry is a cross-cutting ministry, and they have to make sure that activities in all these ministries are gender sensitive. And how can we do that? They need capacity in terms of coordinating activities in these ministries. Mr. Speaker, women are also crying about violence against women and the failure to address issues of violence against women. There's very little investment that is being done in terms of addressing issues of violence against women. Women are crying for such services like psychosocial support, health services. They are very grateful on the establishment of one-stop centers, but they are very little, as you can, Mr. Speaker, maybe one per province. Safe shelters, we can't talk of safe shelters. And these are some of the issues that women are saying government needs to invest in. When we talk of community development, Mr. Speaker, women raised concern. Women raised concern on the support of the community development projects in agribusiness. As we talk of SMEs, Mr. Speaker, there is also need. The recommendation is that there should be formalization of the informal sector, Mr. Speaker, and there's a lots of benefits that comes with formalization of the informal sector. For example, broadening and increasing in the tax base and enabling firms to access the formal economy and help spur firm growth through the potential benefits of being formal. Mr. Speaker, due to the outcry from the stakeholders on the late disbursement of funds allocated to women and gender issues, the committee recommends that the disbursement of funds allocated towards women and gender issues in the 2023 national budget should be done first quarter of the year. The committee also recommends that the ministry should engage on value addition projects which will go a long way in revenue generation for the country through exportation of value-added local products. The committee also recommends that the Women Microfinance Bank must fully strengthen ways of recovering loans from the beneficiaries. The ministry also should speed up the formalization of the women activities in the formal sector and also facilitating for access to both local and export market in order for government to gain foreign currency. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Shinomandiwa, for that presentation. You have been able to present within time. Thank you so much for that. Mr. Speaker said, Madam President, we now going to receive responses from the Honorable Dr. Jane, the Deputy Minister, who is representing Honorable Dr. S. Inyon, the Minister of Women Affairs, Community, Small and Medium Enterprise Development. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair Dr. Nyashanu, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Dr. Mutenda, the President of Senate, Madam M.M. Chinomona, Ministers present, Deputy Ministers, colleague members of Parliament, the Clerk of Parliament, all protocol observed. Mr. Speaker, I just want to begin by showing you a full contingency of our ministry together with our accounting officer, because as your ministry, we place a lot of importance in issues to do with the national budget business. If you can just stand up, they're right at the back there, Honorable Speaker, our Chief Directors, the accounting officer, and I think the departments that we brought in that we think matter in terms of the budget business. Our Chief Executive Officer of the Women's Microfinance Bankers in the House. I didn't see Smedco. If Smedco is with us, please. Okay, Smedco is also amongst us. Mr. Speaker, we take note of all the important issues that were raised by the Portfolio Committee that superintends over the ministry. In as far as women empowerment and gender-related responses is concerned, a total bid of 6 billion for both women empowerment and gender mainstreaming has been submitted, broken down as follows. Women empowerment, 5.4 billion and 600 million for gender mainstreaming. Under the Women's Development Fund, the ministry submitted a bid of 400 million against an expected target of 200 million from Treasury to fund about 200 women's income-generating projects. Under Women's Club, the ministry submitted a bid of 191 million for the training, funding and establishment of women's clubs. On gender-based violence, GBV, the ministry submitted a bid of 300 million for gender-based strategy consultative forums, dissemination and capacitation of GBV provincial coordinating structures. The ministry submitted a bid of 500 million for establishment of 2 one-stop centers and one-stop center. In 2023, the ministry has submitted a bid of 2 for March East and March North, and we feel that this should actually be reaching out to all the 10 provinces of the country and ultimately to all the administrative districts of our country. On sanitary ware, ministry is working with various stakeholders, including the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education and cooperating partners in this initiative to create value chains and frameworks for collaboration and production. Mr. Speaker, we note the concerns of our committee in terms of gender equality, because that remains a very important tool for us in as far as creating an egalitarian society, an equal society where we can all thrive in terms of development. Gender mainstreaming as well, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Speaker, we think that it is key for us to be playing that coordination role as brought out by Honorable Madiwa, and as well as changing perspectives, issues of unpaid work, which women continue to work and remain in the poverty doldrums. Honorable Speaker, women issues to do with health matters, the gender-based violence, which is an impediment in as far as development is concerned, are all noted, and we will certainly be taking them up. I also wanted, Honorable Chair, for us to note that yes, we want to go for those big projects. Yes, we have noted those sentiments. But for us as women, because of our poor background, we still feel that the empowerment should also come in the form of supporting livelihoods. So we will have a double sword there in terms of creating projects for prosperity and wealth creation, but we also go the route of capacitating our women so that at least there is a decent livelihood. Value addition, yes, that becomes a very key strategy in as far as the opportunity to create wealth is concerned. The Women's Bank, Honorable Speaker, we note the concerns, we noted the numbers. They say numbers speak, and agreeably we could do better with more numbers in relation to our population. Collateral issues, those we are addressing, as I will read out. The decentralization part, yes, I know the concern is that it may be very difficult for us to get to our rural women, but we are using the structure of the ministry, which is well devolved in as far as reaching out to our rural women is concerned. I'm not sure if my bank can assist me in terms of disaggregated data to show how much and how many women have benefited in terms of our rural areas. But the target is definitely 2 million women over a period of time. Yes, the need to restructure the bank or remodel the bank, we are certainly learning. We have brought out Bangladesh, we have brought out India as best practices, and we will continuously learn from those two countries as we try to recapacitate the bank so that we serve the population better. For funding women projects and business, especially at grassroots level, disbursement of 120 women across all 10 provinces is targeted. For covering branch network at grassroots level, it is also one of the strategies that we want to deploy so that there is easy access. The bid there is for 20 billion in as far as the Zimbabwe Women Microfinance Bank is concerned. This is against an expenditure target of 1 billion, resulting in a funding gap of 19 billion. And this will go a long way. If we get the funding gap of 19 billion, this will go a long way in reaching out to those vulnerable and rural women that we want to target. As part of the bank's short-term strategic initiative, there are plans to have at least a provincial office in each of the 10 provinces, supported by at least an office in each of the country's districts as well. We move on, Honorable Speaker, to issues to do with community development related issues. The first thing that I would like to state, Honorable Speaker, is that community development is not a target for women, but rather community development encompasses a community as a whole. The current NDS 1 thrust of leaving no one behind cannot be overemphasized in as far as community development related issues are concerned. In response to the challenges faced by communities that the government strengthens and adequately fund its social protection system to support women, youth, children in difficult circumstances, among others, is what community development is all about. The ministry administers the Zimbabwe Community Development Fund to support community development initiatives for income-generating projects. A bid of 1 billion was submitted against a Treasury expected target of 200 million. The ministry is in the process of rehabilitating our community-based skills and entrepreneurial training centers, including Raja Homan in Masvingo, National Center for Rural Women, Jamaica Inn here in between Harare and Mashonaland East, Dambatsoko and Duma in Mashonaland Central. We move on to micro, small to medium enterprises and cooperatives development related issues. Micro MSMEs are playing a significant role in our economy as they directly employ 4.8 million people and contribute 522.2 billion Zim dollars according to the 2021 micro, small to medium enterprise survey. In the endeavor to entrench the development of the sector, the ministry is implementing various initiatives as guided by the MSME Policy 2020-2024, which is anchored on providing, enabling regulatory environment, workspace provision, financing, providing access to markets, business and technical skills training, cluster development, among other measures. Workspace provision, Honorable Speaker, remains one of those key pillars that we think can drive the micro, small to medium enterprise. These to accelerate the provision of decent workspaces for micro, small and medium enterprises. Government is working in collaboration with local authorities, private sector and development partners to renovate existing workspaces and put up new modern workspaces for micro, small to medium enterprises across the country, with designs taking into account the type of business or trades to be housed. Micro, small to medium enterprise financing. SMEDCO is one of the major windows through which the government of Zimbabwe is providing finance for micro, small to medium enterprises. And as at 30 September 2022, SMEDCO had disbursed over $1 billion to 321 clients. The expenditure target of 1 billion was provided by Treasury for 2023. The provision is way below requirements of the sector. The target for 2023 is to fund at least 2,000 micro, small to medium enterprises to the tune of over 25 billion, targeting mainly businesses that are in the manufacturing sector. The business management skills training is also one of those strategies employed by micro, small to medium enterprises department. The training is conducted in partnership with other government agencies such as ZIMRA, the Standards Association of Zimbabwe, PRAS, local authorities, and other development partners in our quest for formalization. This year, 36,000 micro, small to medium enterprises, including cooperatives, were funded. As I'm told, time is running out. Honorable Speaker, we just want to quickly go to the achievements for 2023. The Zimbabwe Women Microfinance Bank disbursed 6,189 loans. Of course, this is still inadequate, and 10,142 jobs were created. We also want to go to the priorities for 2023, which is to review the broad-based women's economic empowerment framework, review the implementation of the national gender policy, review the implementation National Action Plan for Ending Child Marriages, operationalization of the national gender machinery to facilitate mainstreaming of gender in both public and private sectors, implementation of women leadership and decision-making strategy, SME business management and technical skills training, SMEs workplace development, SMEDCO capitalization, startup and supplier development program, production, equipment support and cluster development, training of women communities, SMEs and cooperatives, cooperative registration and dispute resolution, funding of women and communities, establishment of cooperative structures. In conclusion, Honourable Speaker said, Madam President, we will continuously deploy the internal resource mobilization strategy to augment government efforts in as far as availing resources to drive the ministry and government is concerned. However, a few challenges also stand out in terms of inadequate staffing, especially vacancies for community development officers, mobility issues at provincial and district levels, support towards provision of tools of trade like ICT, equipment and furniture for the ministry, timely disbursements of funds as well. We then humbly submit, Honourable Speaker, our report and request an upward review at the ministry's, in terms of the ministry's budgetary request. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Minister, Honourable Dr. J.N. Klanga. Honourable Speaker said, and Madam President, because our program has been delayed by about 45 minutes, we now have to proceed on a tea break, and then we come back and move on to the plenary.
When?
20 minutes.
No.
10 minutes.
15 minutes.